Welcome to Volleyball State, your look at volleyball in 6 rotations. Here are your hosts, Jeff Sheldon and Lincoln Arneal.
Hello and welcome to Volleyball State, a look at the sport of volleyball in 6 rotations, a proud part of the Hurrdat Sports family. I'm Jeff Sheldon.
And I'm Lincoln Arneal.
This week on the show, Nebraska makes itself at home on the road with a pair of convincing sweeps within about 20 hours of each other. We'll look back at the Huskers' wins at Michigan State and Ohio State. Plus, the Ncaa releases its first seeding rankings of the year, and they contain some familiar faces. But because this is a podcast, we will argue about what order in which they appear. Plus, a week after their first loss of the season, Pitt makes a convincing statement against Stanford. We ask the question, why are matches taking so long these days? And finally, we throw a big old jinx on Nebraska-Kearney by interviewing their coach, Rick Squiers, just days before the Lopers drop their first match of the season. Our bad.
It's all right.
But first, Lincoln, tell the folks about where they can find us all over this big wide internet.
Yes, you can follow us at Volleyball Pod on Twitter and also TikTok. Watch some videos that we put out. You can follow me, get information about my coverage of Nebraska volleyball at Lincoln_VB and the greater volleyball world as well too. I write articles for Huskers Illustrated, and I put out a weekly Substack, volleyball.substack.com, with all my thoughts, musings, and in fact, that's kind of what jump-started today's conversation about pace of play. So follow along there, free to subscribe, and it makes your weekend start that much better too. So
have you written anything for Volleyball Mag lately? Is Lee begging you to write some stuff for them?
No, usually I'm kind of the Nebraska Big Ten correspondent. I haven't done anything since the beginning of the season, so nothing for Volleyball Mag yet, but I'm writing my Huskers Illustrated magazine preview tonight, and I will write about the rankings is there as well too. So, and a little
Volleyball Mag, still a quality publication. Go check it out.
Yes.
But look for Lincoln's byline when it appears.
And I do weekly vote for the polls, which come out Monday morning as well too. So I'm one of the 12 media members who votes on the national rankings. So I got to do that tonight as well too. So Sunday night, busy night.
Mm-hmm.
Busy night. But here's what we got coming up on this show. Again, we'll recap the 2 matches that Nebraska played over the great states of Ohio and Michigan. Their state schools, of course. We'll talk about the Big Ten recap, the national news, the upsets that happened, the big matches that happened, and also the rankings. Rotation 4 will be our interview with Ncaa coach Rick Squiers. Rotation 5, Jeff and I will put on our debate hats and talk about the pace of play. And then in rotation 6, we will look forward at Nebraska's next 2 opponents, Illinois again, and newcomer Michigan. So I
double-taked when I saw that on the schedule. I'm like, wait, didn't they just play Illinois like a week ago? And yeah they're making them play Illinois fairly close together. Yeah.
And they haven't played they played Iowa once, and they haven't played their other double opponent in Wisconsin. They have not yet faced them. They'll do that as part of the gauntlet that is November. So,
Well, let's dive into rotation 1. We're going to combine both of Nebraska's matches this weekend into one rotation because we got quite a bit to get to. Both of them fairly similar, I would say. Nebraska knocks off Michigan State on Friday night, takes a quick flight over to Columbus, and beats Ohio State in a mid-afternoon game. And really, I thought that was going to be a problem for Nebraska. It was probably a bigger problem for Ohio State because they went 5 late Friday night with Penn State and then had to turn around like 14 hours later and play Nebraska. So the Big Ten schedule maker is not really doing Ohio State a lot of favors. But let's first take a look at Nebraska beating Michigan State on Friday night. Huskers sweep this one and kind of pull away in midway through each of the 3 sets. Just real quick, top line, Nebraska's outside hitters had a really good night. Taylor Landfair got the start this weekend in both matches, played pretty well against Michigan State, 12 kills and hit .417. Harper Murray, and what would be the start of a really good weekend for her, 12 kills as well, and hit .333. So when both of your outsides are hitting over 300, you probably had a pretty good match, and Nebraska puts it to Michigan State, who was playing in the Breslin Center. And I don't know if they're playing every match there now.
Yeah, this is the second year they've done that.
Anymore.
Yeah, they which the radio broadcast likes to talk about, reminisce about the old gym they used to play in, because John Baylor loves his
John Baylor has the Magic Johnson
references. Yes, but this is the second year they've played in the Breslin Center. But yeah, Nebraska ends up winning that. Was it 15-19 and 15 were the scores, and really the first two sets both kind of went similar ways. It was tied 13-13 the first set. Nebraska goes on a 12-2 run that ends the set, so it's 15. And the second set, Nebraska's up 7-6, another 12-2 run, a little bit more match to play. Nebraska maybe thought the match is over or set's over whenever they have that 12-2 run, but Michigan State fired up a 5-0 run to kind of make things a little bit interesting, but not really. It was pretty much over again at that point. And then another big run. I mean, a little bit close again to that third set, 13-11, Nebraska finished with a 12-4 run. So again, big runs. Nebraska just kind of found moments to really exert their will on the Spartans. And I mean, there's some tight moments, but like you mentioned, Harper Murray, Taylor Landfair got the start over Lindsey Krause this week, and John Cook said that was because of what she did in practice. And both of them had 12 kills. Landfair hit 417, Murray hit 333. So just big performance from them. It's good to kind of see, because I think I did some research for that article. It's only the fourth time that the starters have hit above 300 this season, and not a real gauntlet of opponents. I think it was Michigan, Montana State, Wichita State, and Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So not the highest caliber of opponents, but hey, anytime you do that, it's a good night for the outside hitters.
Nebraska also defensively holds Michigan State to 141 hitting. This was a really good defensive weekend for Nebraska. I mean, you can tell that Nebraska played 6 sets this weekend, swept both matches, didn't allow either opponent to reach 20 points in either of a set, in any set. That's pretty much blowout territory when you're playing rally scoring. If you hold your opponent below 20, Nebraska dominates in this one. A little bit of a slower match for Mara Beeson, doesn't make double figures in kills, and I believe hit below 100. I'm not staring at the box score right in front of me. She more than made up for it against Ohio State the next day, which we'll talk about in a bit. But, Nebraska just kind of did what they were expected to do, which in the Big Ten is not, damning with faint praise. They went on the road, and Michigan State, this is a rough year for Leah Johnson's crew. They lost Sunday afternoon to Washington. So Michigan State's now lost 9 straight. They have yet to win a game in Big Ten play. They're 0-8, and it doesn't really get easier for them this week because they have to go out to LA and play USC and UCLA. Yeah. But Michigan State, usually has some talent that makes you nervous. Taylor Hold'em had a really good freshman season as an outside hitter last year. She is really struggling as a sophomore this year. They brought in some transfers that we talked about in the preview show or preview rotation last week. Nobody was really putting balls down against Nebraska. Michigan State usually, at least in my sort of picture of them in my mind, always has at least one really good middle blocker. Didn't really get much from the middles this week, and their ball handling was not outstanding.
Yeah, that was the one bright spot. That Susanna Kulig had 6 kills on 11 swings at middle, but no one else did anything. I mean, Taylor Preston, 9 kills. Ashaka Anderson, 9 kills. Taylor Hold'em had 6 kills, 6 errors, so she really struggled this year. And also, I will back up. Mara Beeson hit 190. Not a good. 9 kills, 5 errors. So she's had better nights, but it's still, she does better.
Didn't mean to short her there. We'll talk about this kind of when we wrap up the whole weekend. This was a good Bergen Riley match. Yeah, I thought. Nebraska hits over 300. It was funny. I looked it up at the end of the weekend, or not the end of the weekend, end of Friday night, and I think those have changed now because Penn State's played a match since then. But Penn State, Nebraska, and Wisconsin were all tied for the Big Ten lead in attack percentage at 301. And I know Penn State's went up today after they beat Minnesota, and Wisconsin's going to play on Sunday night. We're taping this early Sunday evening. But, we kind of ID'd at the start of the season, can Nebraska get to that 300 team hitting percentage? And they've got a tough road in November to keep it up there. But after this weekend, they just creeped into the 300s, hitting 301. So this was a really nice weekend for Bergen Riley, I thought.
Yeah. And also, great weekend for her. The other kind of highlight was they got 82-91, which was the second largest crowd ever to watch Michigan State play a volleyball match. They played at the Breslin Center, like we mentioned. Number one was, of course, when Nebraska played at Michigan State last year. I think they had 8,600. It was slightly higher figure, but Nebraska comes to town, brings a lot. I know there's a lot of people there from the Michigan area to watch Harper Murray. This is the only time she'll play in Michigan, and she grew up in Ann Arbor, so that's about an hour or so drive away. So a lot of her friends, some young clubs went up to watch her. So it's good to see them out there supporting. Nebraska draws well in Michigan territory.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to add about Michigan State, or should we zip on over to Saturday afternoon?
Yeah. Well, this was the debate. I think I tweeted this out and got some reporting done. Is what would happen first? Nebraska would land in Columbus on their flight, or the Ohio State-Penn State match would end. Because that one went 5 sets, Nebraska landed. They got about 5 minutes, beat the match by about 5 minutes, but it was a late night. They had some delays getting to the airport with traffic, and then delays at the Lansing airport. But yeah, weird thing just to get on an NBC broadcast in Ohio State. So it was good thing that they took care of that in the sweep and were able to get there and recover as much as possible for that Ohio State match.
So if you are a listener who wasn't aware of what happened Friday night, Ohio State was a point away from pulling off one of the biggest upsets of the season across the country. They had a match point up, I think 15-14.
14-13.
They led 14-13 in game 5 at home against Penn State. Had a couple swings for the match, actually, too. They got the ball back in the rally, and they kept setting Emily Londot, and she wasn't able to put the ball away. Penn State ends up scoring the last 3 points of the match to win it 16-14 and hold on and survive late Friday night. And so you knew that Ohio State, facing a quick turnaround to play Saturday afternoon, was going to be tired. And they looked like they just had gone 15 rounds with a heavyweight fight the next night because, Ohio State has some players. I think Jen Flint Oldenburg reeled in the number 2 recruiting class in the country this year. Not all of those freshmen are playing. One of them's playing. She's really good. But Ohio State just looked outclassed by Nebraska. And I don't know, they wouldn't probably blame it on fatigue. But Nebraska ends up sweeping Ohio State on Saturday afternoon, 25-18, 25-18, 25-16. Not even close. And once again, volleyball is counted on to be the lemon sorbet palate cleanser after the football team's turd sandwich. And they end up putting it together, 6-0 runs in each of the first 2 sets. I mean, I remember, I'm going to play the old man card. I'm old enough to remember when Ohio State was a real problem for Nebraska. Not just in Columbus. It was really hard to beat them. But Ohio State would come to Lincoln. I think Jeff Carlston won in the Devaney Center twice, or maybe once in the Coliseum or once in the Devaney Center when he was the head coach at Ohio State. There were some really good Buckeye teams in the 2010s leading up to 2020. They have not quite put it together yet this year, but Nebraska wins this one kind of with ease. Not even kind of with ease. What am I saying? It was an easy win for Nebraska. Yeah. And it was the first ever volleyball match, like college volleyball match on NBC. Is that right?
Yeah. It's very well done. I mean, they
rolled out the Olympic broadcast crew for this. That's Paul Sunderland and Heather Cox. Like that, it felt big time.
Yeah, as sideline reporter, they gave a big rollout. It's kind of good to see, and I don't know, just the quality of production. I noticed this it seems this way with football too, with Sunday Night Football. Just the quality of production on NBC is very high, and it was a very well. I mean, even though it's probably an ESPN crew or NBC, it was NBC crew, but it's kind of people that know the sport of volleyball. So they did a very good job with that. Yeah, the production quality was really high and really well done. So it's good to see. And they'll have 3 others this year, and kind of on that Saturday afternoon slot after whatever Premier League game goes on in the morning. They also have a primetime Big Ten football game. So good to see them get that window. And
I wonder what the Venn diagram is between Husker volleyball and Tottenham fans.
Ooh.
Well, we could find that out. If you are one of those people, email us at volleyballstate@gmail.com. I love Paul Sunderland. He makes a volleyball match feel big time, even if he regularly confused Harper Murray and Merritt Beeson, who look very little alike and wear discernibly different numbers. But both of those players showed out, and so maybe it's defensible because both Harper Murray and Merritt Beeson came to play on Saturday afternoon against Ohio State, especially Harper Murray. I thought this was maybe her best match of the year. 14 kills. She hit 394. And what I was really impressed by Lincoln was she showed a lot of range. I mean,
Yeah.
in her second year, she's developed a lot of like off-speed shots, but she got up and brought the thunder occasionally. But then, her tips were landing. She was tipping from the back row. She could hit roll shots. Like, that was a complete outside hitter we saw on Saturday.
Yeah. And it's more, I think she's tried a couple times this year where she does that push shot off the block to tool it. And I don't think that she hasn't had a lot of success with that, but has found a lot more with the roll shot over the block into the donut or kind of right on that 10-foot line on the line too. So yeah, really impressive. She finished with 14 kills, 394. I think she didn't have her first hitting there until midway through the second set too, and only had finished with a couple of them. So, or that was her only one, I think. Was it her only one?
Let me see if I can dig up the box score. Harper Murray, had one attack here, 14 kills, 1 error on 33 swings to hit 394. You'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, for sure. So she was just, really kind of being that smart outside hitter that she has the potential to be, and really, really showed out. And then Merritt Beeson was right there with her. She had 13 kills, hit 345, 6 blocks, 6 digs. Really, and it was really good to see her. Merritt Beeson did a great job against Emmy Selman, who Selman had a huge night against Penn State with 27 kills, career high as a freshman, and just really struggled against Nebraska defense and blocks. She finished with, was it 8 kills? Yeah, 8 kills, 7 errors. Mm-hmm. So
Emmy Selman's going to be a really, really good player in this league for the next few years. If she stays at Ohio State, I'm not inferring anything, just players move around a lot, but she's going to be a terror in this league. And so when you look at combining her with Emily Londot, who leads the Big Ten in kills, I'm still pretty sure, like, you think, okay, that is the nucleus of a really solid team. But Ohio State, again, they were switching their setters around. I don't know if our listeners noticed, they pulled their setter Mia Tumen after set 2, and they put in. So I thought Tumen's days as the starter was over, but apparently she started against Penn State on Friday and she started against Nebraska. And I forgive me, I do not have the other setter's name in front of me right now, but we talked about her last week. She's the transfer from West Virginia, Kamaya Gibson.
There you go.
I thought that she had taken over the starting job because she started their last 2 matches, but I don't know if Tumen was dealing with an injury. Regardless, Jen Flynn-Oldenburg, tried them both, and neither one of them really got it going.
And I wonder if some of that was fatigue a little bit too, and because I don't know if Tumen has just run out of gas, because they also changed middle blockers. I think they brought in Zariah Ragler in that third set, and then changed liberos at times.
I think they were just looking for answers.
Looking for anything. Well, because also, Nebraska won the first 2 sets easy, and the third set was over very quickly. Nebraska was up 7-1, and then 15-3. Once they were up 15-3, it's like, all right, let's.
It was like 10-1, wasn't it?
It was
challenged. They were up 9-1, and then they pulled a challenge card when somebody got a touch off the block, and the officials were like, "All right, fine, you win this point too." And before you could blink in Game 3, it was 10-1.
Yeah, don't deny Becca Alec her kills. Becca Alec's kills were a little bit hard to come by. She finished with 4 against Ohio State, and she only had. She had 3 against Michigan State too. So Rebecca, don't take away her kills on airs. So John Cook got her an extra one there.
Let me go back to Merritt Beeson for a second. I think this is kind of funny that maybe even as recently as 3 weeks ago, we were having the debate over whether they should allow Beeson to hit from the back row, or if the team would be better served by subbing her out for a DS and just shoring them up defensively. And what John Cook had said is like, well, she's got to kill enough balls from the back row to make it worth it to play her back there. And now it seems like all Merritt Beeson's kills come from the back row. I think Avid maybe sent this to us or put it up online. I got to look for it. I would love to see what Merritt Beeson's hitting percentage is on back row swings versus front row swings, because she is outstanding from the back row. All of a sudden, she's got really good court vision. She gets up high enough to hit at a good angle. And it's like, well, man, can you only have Merritt Beeson hit out of the back row? And, make her the DS, and she can dig in the back row and serve. And
that's why she's a 6th rotation player.
But I think that maybe has now been settled as Merritt Beeson's a good all-around attacker, and she really, showed it against Ohio State on Saturday with 13 kills, hitting 345. Andy Jackson apparently knew she was on national television because she murdered a few volleyballs. He had 8 kills and hit 500, and some of them, Emmy Solman's like 6'4", and I think Jackson was getting over her on the slide a few times, and there's still, I think she wants to throw 99 miles an hour all the time. And there will be times where she's going to need to tip or tool, but against a team that was maybe outclassed a little bit in Ohio State, she showed you why she is an All-American level player, and she's hitting well over 400 now.
Yeah, I think Andy Jackson was blocked twice. Both of them were on that same kind of seam where she tried to find the gap between the outside hitter or the opposite hitter and the middle blocker, and they closed the window on that. So other than that, she was the destroyer of volleyball. So it was a really good weekend for her, and a good weekend for Nebraska too. So let's kind of, I think, transition from overall, match points to overall takeaways, because that's kind of what it was. We mentioned Bergen Riley too, but the passing was really good. Ohio State tried serving short a couple times, got a couple aces because they were yo-yo serving. But Nebraska adjusted and really shut that down too. And I thought passed pretty well for the whole. That was the other thing too with Londot and Selman. They both went cross court. Lexi Rodriguez had 22 digs in just 3 sets, which was a season high.
Well, Londot, they made mention of it in the broadcast too. Nebraska was giving her line and either counting on Bergen Riley to make the dig.
Rodriguez was line on her, yeah.
Was she line on her? Okay. Londot also, she takes a ton of swings anyway. She took 53 swings against Nebraska and I think 59 against Penn State. So that's 112 swings for Londot in a 24-hour period. But I don't have it in the notes here. I do want to make mention of Nebraska's back row. Olivia Mauk was really good once she adjusted on serve receive, and then Lexi Rodriguez was digging some big shots. She had 22 digs, and you could see the difference from Friday night against Michigan State, who didn't challenge her at all. I think she might have had 5 digs against Michigan State, and that's not because she can't get to balls. It's just the book on challenging Nebraska is don't hit the ball at Lexi Rodriguez because she's going to dig it. And either way, pick your poison, and both Ohio State and Michigan State went down. But yesterday was a very good game for Lexi Rodriguez. Yeah,
and speaking of Olivia Mauk too, she also served well too. She was served during one of those 6-0 runs and served an 8-0 run in that third set too. So she served 22 times against Ohio State, which was the most of any Nebraska player, and also had 2 aces. So good weekend from her, not only passing but also from the service line.
And there's some, as always with Lexi Rodriguez, there's at least one highlight dig that sticks out in your mind. She reflexively stuck her arm out to dig one cross-court shot, and it turned into a 3-point pass, which was pretty incredible. Bergen Riley, we mentioned she had a good weekend. What exactly does that mean? Nebraska hit 368 on the road over 2 matches that were played in an 18-hour span. So that's really good. You don't do that unless your setter has a good weekend. I thought her decision-making was good. Her tempo was good. And she's still developing as an offensive setter. But, some of the setter dumps stuck out in my mind as well. That ball needs to get to the floor in a hurry when a setter attacks it, and she's starting to throw it down. And, whether or not it's a carry really depends on whether an official is going to call it or not. And they were not doing it on setters, so you might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I think you look at who the recipient of a lot of those good sets were too, were the outside hitters too. We mentioned Taylor Landfair had a good weekend too. She hit 341, averaging 3 kills per set. I don't know, we go back and forth on who's going to play, but I think for now, you got to ride with her until she hits a rough patch at that second outside hitter position behind Harper Murray. I don't know if there was anything that was really jumped out as far as red flags or kind of moments of concern, but when she's putting up kills, especially like she did against Michigan State, she was kind of quiet for a lot of the early on in that Ohio State match, but eventually got going. I thought good weekend from her. She put up a block against Londot at times. Her and Murray did a decent job at that, and there's only so much you can do against Londot, but good weekend from Landfair, I thought.
And just overall, when you go on the road in the Big Ten and you get 2 sweeps and you don't give up 20 points in any set, and you have to travel in between matches, it's not like, I know that USC and UCLA are not exactly right next to each other, but going to the same city and potentially even staying in the same hotel, makes it a little bit easier. You had to go to East Lansing on Friday night. You had to get on a plane, fly to Columbus. I don't know what time they got in their hotel room, but
it was 11:30. Yeah,
to get up and go play a 2:30 match is the mark of a mature team that just kind of handled their business. And there have been times, early this season with Nebraska where you wondered, would they be able to do that? And these were not the crown jewels of the Big Ten that they did it against, but the fact that they did it in the way that they did, I thought was really impressive.
Yeah, for sure. So 2 more wins in the bag. Moves Nebraska is now, what are they, 8-0? 8-0 in the Big Ten, still tied with Penn State at the top of the league. So let's talk about some other things in rotation 2. What else happened around the league too? I kind of want to get it out there. I know it's not on the court, but big news I thought on Thursday, Penn State coach Katie Schumacher-Cawley announced that she has been diagnosed with breast cancer, which is very sad. You never want to hear that. She was on the sidelines for both the matches, so not much information. I mean, she'll go through treatment, so you wish her the best in that. But if she was on the sidelines, Penn State did have their big pink night on Sunday, or pink match on Sunday. So good to see her get support. So rally around her support around KSC. Yes.
Yes. And Penn State had a really good weekend. Even though they did not play at their best against Ohio State, they made the plays when it matters. They beat Ohio State on Friday night, 16-14 in the fifth. And every Big Ten champ, if you win a Big Ten title, kind of has to pull out one of these 5 setters that you might not expect against. Nebraska did it last year against Purdue. Jess Mruzik, again, was the big star for Penn State. She had 29 kills Friday night against Ohio State. Taylor Trammell with 11 kills. Izzy Stark, their great freshman setter, 15 assists, 17 digs, and 5 kills of her own. Penn State outblocks Ohio State 13-7. And they needed all of that because Ohio State has a budding star in Emmy Selman.
Yeah, she went off for 27 kills. And really, she was their go-to player. I mean, Ohio State won that 4th set to force a 5th and kept them in it. She was delivering from all over. And you mentioned that they had those 2 shots to win it. And both of those, I mean, Londot took both of those, and she just looked gas even in that 5th set.
If Selman is the one in the front row in the final couple points of that Penn State-Ohio State match, I'm not so sure Ohio State doesn't win.
Yeah.
Because Selman was putting the ball away. She's 6'4", so she's got great size, but she's a mature hitter. Like, I saw how she tool blocks, and she didn't have a great night against Nebraska. She had a really good night against Penn State. Kind of remind me of, I think, Michaela Fecky's freshman season. She had 17, 18 kills, something like that, when they won in 5 at Penn State. This was one of those matches, and I'm sitting here watching the end of that match going, maybe you should set Selman out of the back row instead of Londot. It wasn't happening. Londot does finish with 19 kills, 12 digs, but Ohio State's left wondering what might have been, because Penn State makes the final couple plays down the stretch and wins that match in 5.
Yeah, and there was an odd moment in the 4th set I want to talk about too. I mean, Ohio State ends up winning it, but so they were going back and forth. There's a play where I think, who was it, Trammell or something? It was a Penn State player hit it wide, and it was called in by the line judge almost. I don't know if they had a good view of it or whatever, but Ohio State challenged, and in the replay, it was clearly out. So the replay official, they have this mic, which is good to see on television, but the in arena people have no idea what's being said into it. So she announces into the microphone, ball was out. Ohio State loses the challenge, point Penn State. So the first part of that disagreed with the second part. And when she comes out, she then signals point Penn State, which the coaches don't hear her explanation of what it was. And maybe she goes and talks to them if they want that, but the match that tied up the match 18-18. They played 2 more points before Ohio State won 2 points. And then Penn State calls timeout, and you could see the judge, the scorer at the table, is like, "Wait a second, you said ball was out, point Penn State," and you could see the conversation that they're having is like, the disagreement of the logic there.
Yeah.
The BTN did a great job covering.
Somebody's mouth got ahead of their brain on that one, and it nearly screwed up the whole match.
So then she had to go and talk to both the coaches, and you could tell her she was just I don't know, she was very upset or very sorrowful that she made a mistake, and apologetic. And she explained that they reversed it, so it was 20-18 when they went 2 timeout, and then they flipped it rather than they kept the 2 following plays. After that, even the play after that, even that Penn State serve was a long rally. Both teams had lots of chances to put it out, so it wasn't a bump set side out. And coming out, it was 21-17. Ohio State ended up winning the set. So it was just a very odd moment. And also, the official that messed that up was the down official. She was the up official for the Nebraska-Ohio State match too. So the same crew, they switched roles, and I don't know. Hopefully she gets forgiveness and grace out of that. But that was just a weird moment. I've never seen that where they mess up a play. I mean, the bench also that's why they have a horn. Say stop, come back. You made.
And also like the scorer needs to be in communication with the official and say, wait a minute, if you're saying that ball is out, that means it's this person's point, right? Let's
say won the challenge.
Let's say what we mean, and we mean what we say, and over communicate until we get this right. But in a sport like volleyball where you've got 100 points a match, like I'm honestly surprised it doesn't happen more often. Penn State had no such drama on Sunday afternoon when they swept Minnesota, and this was at home. This was in Happy Valley. They dominate number 14 Minnesota, 25-16, 25-20, 25-14. So Jess Mruzek, again, another big day, 18 kills, 16 digs, hitting 325. Maybe Jess Mruzek is your current front runner for Big Ten Player of the Year.
She is.
Say what?
Spoiler alert, she is.
Spoiler alert, she is. Penn State had 22 more kills in the match than Minnesota. They hit 305. Minnesota's middles really didn't do much, if anything, to speak of. 0 kills, 2 errors on 18 swings. Julia Hansen had 11 kills to lead the Gophers. But, I think what this is showing us is there's a clear tier at the top of the Big Ten right now. It's Nebraska, Wisconsin, Penn State. And you could convince me Purdue is in this as well. But Purdue's going to need to jump up and grab one of these wins against one of the top 3 teams.
Yeah, I think they're clearly the number 4 team, kind of straddling that line between trying to be an elite team, and we'll see what they do against the Wisconsins and Oregons and other teams that are trying to. They beat Oregon. They beat Oregon. Yeah, so they beat them. So they're trying to catch the top tier. So, but speaking of that top tier teams, Wisconsin, they earned a 4-set win over number 11 Oregon in Madison. So big night from Sarah Franklin, 17 kills, 12 digs. Julia Orzel had 10 kills, 10 digs as well too. Really, it was defensive. I mean, as much as Wisconsin has struggled passing, I thought they did it more so with their block and really slowed down. I mean, Oregon only hit 167. Mimi Collier had 16 kills, but it just wasn't. I mean, the last 2 sets were 25-19, 25-19 after it was tied 1-1. So Wisconsin really kind of took the wind out of the Oregon sails and looked like the better team when they played on Friday on BTN Plus. Thanks for putting that match on BTN Plus.
Well, the Penn State and Minnesota today was on BTN Plus.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest matches of the weekend, and you're putting it on the streaming service.
That's what the schedule maker should have put that one on BTN and then moved the Ohio State, Penn State, moved all those to Thursday night so you have a day.
I mean, this league plays matches 6 nights a week anyway. Why not? Oregon did come back Oregon did beat Iowa. They did drop a set, but they didn't let the Hawkeyes reach 18 points in any of the other sets. So Oregon kind of stays in that top half of the Big Ten. And Purdue, kind of trick or treat Purdue. This is what happens with the Boilermakers. They went 5 against UCLA, which is, a UCLA team that I think is probably a little better than their record indicates. We saw them really come to play in Lincoln. But Purdue, another 5-setter. They beat UCLA 15-11 in the 5th. Purdue hits 325. They get 23 kills and 17 digs from Eva Hudson, who We mentioned Jess Maruzic, maybe the front runner for Big Ten Player of the Year. Eva Hudson's right there as well. Raven Colvin hits better than 550 and has 17 kills. This was an offensive kind of match because Sheridan Leverett, UCLA's star outside hitter, 29 kills in a losing effort for the Bruins. Purdue's block also comes to play as well, outblocking UCLA 16-6.
Yeah, and Leverett had 50 swings, so she was very efficient night too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's like what she hit, like 450.
Yeah, it was. She hit something.
No, that's like 600, depending on how many errors she had. But like that's over 500.
Yeah. Well, the other key thing too, Eamon pointed this out on Twitter. Purdue's played 3 5-set matches this year. Here's their hitting percentage in the 5th set, and of those, they hit 429 against Minnesota. Won that. They hit 450 against UCLA, won that, and then topping both of those, hit 481 against Nebraska and lost the 5th set too. So they
Once
turned
again,
it on the 5th set.
That is a match that will defy every actuarial table. Like, oh, what do you mean you hit 481 in a set and lost? Like, don't ask me about it. Don't, you know what? Let's just move on. Purdue draws a huge crowd, by the way, when they play Indiana, in-state rival Indiana, the other day. Nearly 15,000 in Mackey Arena, their big basketball arena, 14,876. And they got to watch the Boilermakers put a hurtin' on Steve Aird's Hoosiers, 25-18, 14, and 9 to win the Monon Spike and win the Pride of Indiana battle. Eva Hudson, 17 kills and hit 417. Like, I don't know what you do to slow down Eva Hudson. I don't know who's done it this year. I'm sure there have been a few teams. Probably as you do what Wisconsin does and you put a giant block up there and try to make her tool you or hit around you and dig her. But great weekend for Eva Hudson, who may end up being Big Ten Player of the Week on Monday.
Yeah. Oh, and that 14,876 is also the record for a Big Ten match. They beat the old record. I think Minnesota held it, and that was just a shade under 11,000. So beat it by
match between. We should clarify a match played between 2 Big Ten teams.
Yes, Big Ten.
In a non-Final Four environment. How about that?
Thank you. Big Ten versus Big Ten regular season. So, and also, and Purdue's going to do it again next week against Wisconsin too. So, I know there's a lot of hatred towards Indiana in-state rivalry too, but I feel like Purdue versus Wisconsin, that's going to see if they can cover the eyes of the fire marshal and fit a few more people in there. And what's good is they're going to play on Terraflex next week. I know some basketball kickoff events prevented them from playing on that this week, but so they'll get another chance to see if they can up that record a little bit too. So good match for them.
All right. Yeah, let's move on to rotation. That was our Big Ten roundup. Let's move on to rotation 3. And Lincoln, remind me, did we want to go to the national? Yeah, that's the national stuff. Yeah. You want to start talking about the NCAA things?
Yeah. So this happened on Sunday.
This came out Sunday afternoon, like right as Pitt was handing Stanford their lunch.
Yes.
The NCAA selection committee drops their rankings.
Yeah, why not? It makes Stanford feel worse about themselves too. But yeah, that was a match that was on ESPN too, so a good national platform to get this reveal this. The big headline of it too, I think Nebraska is number 1. You listen to an interview with the selection committee chair that Michaela Chester did, and the big kind of factor that Nebraska over Pitt was the number of top 10 wins and the number of top 25 wins too. So they really valued that. That's why Nebraska is ahead of Pitt. They didn't differentiate between the 5-set versus 3-set loss versus SMU. Mm-hmm. So they say a loss is a loss, but I think they've clearly valued wins over quality competition more so than, SMU is not a bad loss because, spoiler alert, SMU was number 7. They have the big resume wins that kind of vaulted them up the rankings too. But that's what put Nebraska over Pitt. So Nebraska 1, Pitt 2, Penn State 3, and Louisville 4. So if the hypothetical tournament started today, there's your 4 regional hosts.
And I don't know what this number is for Pitt because I'm just like literally counting on my fingers right now. But as I look at these top 16 NCAA seeds, Nebraska has wins over 6 of them.
Yeah.
They've beaten Louisville, Stanford, Creighton, Purdue, TCU, and USC. Right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And they'll play a couple more too.
They'll play Minnesota. They'll play Penn State. They'll play Wisconsin and Oregon, who's number 10.
Yeah.
So Nebraska still got plenty of time to play these teams. Also, we should point out, the tournament isn't seeded for another 6-7 weeks.
6, yeah.
So this is pretty arbitrary, but not all that arbitrary. It's based on some numbers, but it's very flexible. It will change and probably change somewhat significantly before the end of the season. But it's something nice that Nebraska can hang its hat on right now. As always, you just keep winning, and that's how you get a top seed.
Yeah, a lot of Big Ten teams on that list too. I mean, we mentioned all the people that Nebraska plays too, but really with USC and Minnesota slipping in there, they really valued that. So
Creighton at number 6 is outstanding because, Stanford and Louisville, one of those two might drop down below them. I don't really see Penn State or Nebraska dropping out of the top 4 unless Wisconsin goes on a big run and wins the Big Ten, and maybe they could get in there. Creighton has a very good shot as long as they, I'm asking them to go undefeated in Big East play, which they could, but that's a tall order. Creighton's going to be right there with an argument for a top 4 seed at the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure. And Louisville has the gauntlet this week too. I know Stanford or Pitt had it last week going. Would they go with SMU, and then had Stanford. Louisville plays Pitt this next Friday night. So they had SMU as well relatively soon as well too. So
I don't know if the committee would come out and admit though how much, to what extent they rely on RPI to kind of judge teams that don't necessarily have a head-to-head. Creighton's conference schedule is just, as a matter of fact, going to hurt their RPI. Like they can sweep every one of their remaining opponents, and some of them will just kind of drag them down a little bit from the RPI, and there's nothing Creighton can do. Like all Creighton can do is continue to win and kind of let the chips fall where they may. But even if they're a number 5 seed, let's say, that puts them in the same regional as the number 4 team.
Yeah.
And in theory, that's a more winnable Elite 8 matchup. So
sure.
Great job.
So speaking of potential regionals, here would be Nebraska as a number 1 seed. Here's who could be coming to Lincoln for a possible regional should the tournament end today or start today. It doesn't. Number 1 Nebraska, number 8 Texas, number 9 Wisconsin, and number 16 Minnesota. What fun!
Yeah, I mean it's basically the season opening tournament, except you swap whoever was in that
Stanford
for Nebraska. Let's move on to some of the other big matches of the weekend. Stanford, they had a tough weekend this weekend, and they went 1-1, but they earned a very tight sweep over SMU, who are the giant killers this season in college volleyball. Stanford needed 7 match points to finish off a sweep over number 12 SMU, winning the final set 35-33, and that was after they won a deuce game in game 2, 25-23, and winning game 1 just by 3. 25-22. So Stanford, it was a sweep, but it was a white knuckler for the Cardinal. So SMU actually had 4 set points in that third set to extend the match and couldn't do it. So a tight win by Stanford, but serving again once again a problem for Kevin Hambley's crew, Lincoln.
Yeah, it was so many service errors. Stanford, had the sweep. They had 22 service errors too, so that's almost a whole set's worth of points.
That's 7%.
Yeah, just giving away. But too, SMU also did themselves no favors too because they missed 15. So there was 37 service errors too. So even with all those 37 service errors, we'll talk about this in a little bit too. That match took almost 2 hours with 37 free points that were just missing the serve too. And they only combined for 5 aces. So it wasn't like they were super aggressive serving and it was just sloppy.
5 aces, 37 service errors.
Yikes. That's just not good too. Stanford, they did finish with more kills, 53-37, and hit 303 against the 2. Rubin put up 18 kills, and is it Parker? Yeah, she had 16 as well too. And then Kami Minor, great match. We come to expect from her: 46 assists, 6 digs, 4 blocks. And then their offense really kind of dictated when the ball was in play too. But just so many service errors that just haunted them.
Well, but then Stanford's cross-country road trip did not exactly have a happy ending. They had to go to Pitt on Sunday afternoon, and they got smoked by number 1 Pitt, who beat them 25-17, 25-16, 25-20, a long road trip for Stanford. And this is now just going to be the fact of life for these California schools that are going to be in the ACC, like you are going to be racking up frequent flyer miles and have to play after getting off of long airplane flights. Pittsburgh hit the nation's leading attacking team, we should point out, who's hitting like better than 350 coming into the match, hit 314 against Stanford, 17 kills, 6 blocks, 6 digs from Olivia Babcock, their great sophomore opposite hitter. And Tori Stafford says, hey, don't forget about me, 12 kills for her. Taylor Harvey had 11 kills for Stanford. Stanford, though, which was a top 15 attacking team coming into the weekend, hitting like 290, hit 090 against Pittsburgh. And Lincoln, how bad were Stanford's outside hitters in this match?
We talked about Ruben and Kurt had great matches against SMU. They did not have good matches against Pittsburgh. They had 9 kills, 11 errors on 39 attacks too. So that's a negative performance there too. But hey, if you want a good note, they only had 4 service errors against Pitt. So I don't know if they fixed that or just changed.
They didn't side out very much, so they weren't serving that often. So if you're looking for silver linings, Stanford has played a really tough schedule this year. They always do. And now they get, dropped into the conference with the nation's best, or at least top ranked team as of right now. Stanford goes down to Pitt. Pitt, ever since they dropped that 5-setter to SMU, Pitt's been playing angry volleyball, it seems like, and just kind of that annoyed them to the point where they are just crushing teams now.
Yeah, I think the road does get a little easier for Stanford. They go Cal, Miami, Florida State. They go through the rest of the ACC too, but then they close with Louisville too. So it's maybe a time for Stanford to start stacking up some wins and see what Louisville's like that last weekend of the season.
Just to mix it up, Stanford should take a ship to one of those those East Coast road trips. Like go through the Panama Canal, just take a cruise.
They're not class. What are they doing?
I was going to say Stanford never has class, so it doesn't. They could probably get away with it. Creighton, we mentioned them earlier. A ho-hum weekend, not ho-hum as far as results go, but they blow away 2 Big East opponents. Creighton has now won 10 in a row. Their last 5 wins have all come via sweep. They're doing exactly what they need to do. So great weekend for Kirsten Berthal Booth's crew. This Texas match I thought was interesting. I saw the volleyball Twitter start tweeting about it. I'm like, wait, what happened? Texas won, but things were a little weird.
Yeah, that first set, Texas looked like they were going to dominate Georgia. Georgia's kind of one of those teams that started on the fringes of the rankings and really haven't lived up to expectations a little bit. I mean, Sophia Fisher is one of the better middle blockers, but don't really have that much. But Texas was up 20-10 in the first set, and then they lose the first set 25-23. So I looked at the box score. I mean, just a couple service errors, and then Georgia just caught fire, and it just weird match too. They're like, oh, maybe I do need to pay attention to this match too. And then Texas nah, we got this, and then won the next 3 sets too. The second set was a little competitive, and then they took care of business in 3 and 4. So Texas exerting itself in the SEC.
Back out west, number 24 BYU rallied for a 5-set win over Utah. I don't know if they still call it the Holy War, but we are not bound by any sort of trademark here on this podcast, so we can call it the Holy War. They won in 15-12 in the 5th over Utah, but oh my gosh, 3 of the 5 sets were deuce games. They were 27-25, 25-23, 15-12 in the 5th. BYU won the first set by 4. This was a tight match. Claire Little led BYU in this one, 16 kills, 12 digs for the Cougars. 6 Utah players recorded double-digit kills. Is that right? And they didn't win the match.
They went a 6-2 system, so it's a little easier. So every single player, every attacker got double digits.
Outstanding. Utah had 15 more kills than BYU in this match, but lost because, once again, serving errors. They missed 17 serves, so they purdued themselves right out of a win in the Holy War. A big win for BYU. And you want to take us back down south?
Yeah, we'll go that. Rough week for number 25 Auburn. They'll probably be exiting the rankings. They've been there for a couple weeks too, but they lost to Alabama and Tennessee to finish out the that. Louisville had a couple of sweeps this weekend. They've won 8 straight since losing to Nebraska, but usually except for that Auburn and maybe the BYU match, there were not a lot of upsets. So we're seeing some kind of, I don't know, the rankings are fifth, sorting out to where they need to be of tiers of teams. But not if a higher ranked team for the generally won this weekend too, except for the Holy War upset, and then Auburn also face planning twice against two SEC rivals.
We do have a little bit of an upset in Division II, which we're going to take full responsibility for as we slide into rotation 4. We had a great chat with University of Nebraska-Kearney coach Rick Squiers, who has been at UK for 26 seasons. The Lopers were undefeated coming into this weekend, and I believe ranked number 3 in Division II. They went on the road and won on Friday night. And then lost their first match of the season, were swept at Central Oklahoma on Saturday. We taped this interview earlier in the week before that road trip. So just listen to this chat with that context in mind. But we're really lucky to chat in rotation 4 with University of Nebraska-Kearney coach Rick Squiers. And we're really pleased to be joined today with coach of the University of Nebraska-Kearney Lopers, Rick Squiers. Coach, thanks so much for being with us today. For our listeners who might not be as familiar with the UNK program, they're a heck of a program, and they're having a heck of a year again this year. Coach, you've been at UNK now for 26 seasons. You're 19-0 to start this year, currently ranked number 3 in the Division II poll, and you've dropped just 3 sets all season long. Like, how good is this team, you think, when you stack it up to some of the best teams that you've coached during your time in Kearney?
Yeah, I mean, I think it remains to be seen, with so much volleyball ahead of us, where this team's going to stack up. But what I do like is they're really competitive. They kind of take that approach that they refuse to give up a set. We've been down before. I mean, we've had a few that we've faced set point on many occasions and fought back from 23-20 and 24-21 and stuff like that. And so they're just pretty competitive. And as a coach, when you realize that you've got a group that doesn't want to give away a rally, let alone a set, it makes you sleep a little easier at night. I mean, we still don't sleep, but I like that about our team.
Well, it seems like, you mentioned not only do you not give up sets very often, other teams are having a really hard time putting the ball down against you. You are holding opponents to under 100 hitting percentage, 0.95 on the season. Is block and defense kind of the identity of this year's team, or what's let you be so successful defensively this year?
Sure. I think it has become a signature of our group this year. And it's a little bit interesting because we had a lot of years like that. And it was something we always tried to hang our hat on a little bit. And I used to tell people that it wasn't necessarily by choice. We would have much rather had 2 6-3 pins that we could just lay it out to and say, who cares about defense? But at our level, you recruit the best athletes you can get, and you play in a way that gives you a chance to have success. And for so many years, that was dig our way to victory. And we had a few years where it wasn't quite like that. We were still pretty good the last 3 or 4 years, but it was a lot more about, can we out-hit you? Can we score? And now this year, it feels like we're a little bit more back toward that, play really hard on defense, dig a bunch of balls, challenge you to hit it into the cross court, and deal with our libero, and even our DSs are really good cross court defenders. And we block well enough. There's a little bit of a joke in Division II volleyball that none of us can block. So we still kind of fit that every now and then. But we do play good defense. We play really hard. And I think that's probably what's led us to be able to keep some teams from hitting at the clip that they're used to. I mean, even when I watch them on film, sometimes you spend 2 or 3 days watching somebody and you're like, geez, how are we going to stop these guys? And then at the end of the night, we held them to 120 or 140 or whatever. And it's just a credit to how hard our girls play. And they're pretty fearless back there. So it's a good trait to have.
For sure. And kind of, you talk about the defense. At the center of that is your libero, Alois, who, she's a graduate transfer. What has she added to this team? And I guess secondary, how often, do you have grad transfers very, very often? You had Jaden Ferguson last year, but is that kind of a world that you've dealt in very much?
It's part of the new recruiting landscape. And we kind of debate back and forth, how much of that can really impact your program in Division II, because all those people in the portal, everybody sees them, and not very many of them they all think they're going up, it seems like. So what has worked for us a little bit is, you mentioned Jaden Ferguson, and somebody that was familiar with our program, and we had her grad program, and the same was kind of true for Allie Weiss. A little bit tougher to recruit her here from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hard sell, but we were a perfect fit for her grad program. She's a business major and wants to get her CPA and everything, and they just did not have that setup for her at Hillsdale. Otherwise, I think she would have been happy to stay, and they were more than happy to keep her, obviously. So we kind of won the Allie Weiss lottery, and there were a lot of people trying to get her. And even though we knew she was good, I don't think I had the expectation that she would make this kind of an impact this year. She came in and it was pretty immediate. Not just that she was very skilled and brought all kinds of wonderful volleyball things to the table, but she's the right person to wear the jersey too. She's really competitive. She's a great teammate. She makes other people better. She's got a great volleyball IQ. And so I think when you're playing with somebody like that, it gives you a little bit more confidence too, to know that, hey, we got her on our side. I'll do my job. She's going to do more than her fair share, digging balls and taking balls in serve receive. And she's a really good server as well. Mm-hmm. And so that has been above and beyond anything we could have hoped for, to have somebody of that quality come in here and wear the libero jersey for us.
I wonder how big the libero accounting club is across the country. Probably not that big. It does look like your attack is really balanced, Coach. You've got 4 players this year who are averaging kind of somewhere between 3.4 and 2.8 kills a set. That seems like it would say a lot about your setter. And so I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about Peyton Neff and what she's been, what she means to this team. She's been in the program for a couple years now.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton's having a great year. She's coming off an All-American season, honorable mention, All-American last year. And I kind of thought it took her almost all the way through last year to really feel confident, like she wants to. And so she kind of hit the ground running this year. And she's doing a lot of things that you want your setter to be able to do. She does move the ball around well, but she's also a really good blocker. She's contributing to our sound defense. Sometimes setters get a bad rap that they don't play defense, and she's become a much improved defensive player. And I think what also helps her is we're a really good serve receive passing team. We mentioned Allie already, but Addie Mock's one of our DSs who's a senior, who's playing like a senior, having a good senior season. And then we have Lauren Taubenheim playing 6 rotations, who wore the jersey last year. We gave her a bad time. She was the tallest libero in maybe the world. She was 6'2", and she was so good in serve receive that we had Jaden here, so we had her play libero last year. So we have 2 high-level serve receive libero quality players that are handling almost all the balls. And that helps your setter a ton, and Peyton has taken full advantage of that for sure.
For sure, yeah. And give a shout out to Peyton, also a North Platte native too, and I think she's second in the nation in assists, which she's doing something right. So I'd like to give a shout out to the home state kids.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, one of the things that's hard about Division II is that the postseason, you can have a great postseason, but the way the postseason set up is it's set up geographically. So you're always stuck in that central region, which is a mini tournament in itself too. I mean, you're constantly facing Concordia, St. Paul, Wayne State, who are also top 10 teams. How do you feel that the conference prepares you well for what you face in the postseason?
I think our league does a great job of battle testing people. This year, it's probably as deep as ever. We'll see how the top end fares, I guess. You never know until you get down to the end and your top teams play top teams from the Northern Sun. There was a little bit of crossover early, but not a lot. But I think it's as deep as ever. So you know that every weekend you're playing somebody that is going to create a huge challenge for you. Even this weekend, we're going on the road to Arkansas, Fort Smith, and then play Central Oklahoma, who are both really high-quality opponents. And then you got to deal with the road trip on top of that. So you don't have to work that hard at creating a schedule that's going to get you ready for whatever you're going to see at the end. So if you can survive your schedule and make it into the postseason, then I think you'll go in with some confidence. But, then again, all that said, you're playing somebody else in the top 10 or whatever it might be. So
yeah,
the Central Region tournament, if you're fortunate enough to be in it, is sometimes deeper and possibly more competitive than the Elite Eight. So we hate it. We deal with it. We still want to be in it, but that's kind of the cards we're dealt.
And by the time this episode is posted, these matches will have already happened. But this weekend, as Coach mentioned, they got a big one coming up on the road at number 13, Central Oklahoma. That's going to be a fight for the top of the MIAA. Does that conference championship, knowing that there's bigger goals past it, what does that goal still mean to the players on this team?
I think it still means a lot. It's such a competitive conference, and we're now maybe 4 or 5 years out from getting one of those trophies, and we've been in the hunt for the last 3 or 4 years and had a couple of cracks at either getting a piece of it or been in the tournament finals. And so I think it's a big deal to them, and especially the way the schedule lays out this year, it's not favorable to us. Some teams in our league this year have 2 less home matches, so we're one of those that has 7 at home and 9 on the road. And so if you could somehow pull one out with those odds, you'd have to feel awfully good about it. And so I think it's a big deal. I mean, it's still one of the premier conferences in the country, and if you can compete for a conference championship, in some respects, that's as hard to do as making a run at a national championship, because you got to do it every weekend.
For sure. You look kind of at how the last couple of years, you had a lot of experience on your team, a lot of seniors, some graduates on your roster too. I mean, they've seen the last couple of years, season-ending losses have all happened in 5 sets. I mean, how hungry are the upperclassmen on this team to break through, to get back to the Elite Eight?
No question, it's on their mind. I mean, it's a goal. And while we hated those defeats and they're painful, and, the one last year was just a battle. I mean, it was a back and forth, point for point. We are the team that felt like we let one get away because we had the 2-1 lead. So as painful as it is, it also gives you a little bit of confidence coming into the next year, knowing that, okay, Wayne State's got a heck of a team. They have a similar team this year. These are all teams that, if they catch a break or two, can go win a national championship. And we were toe-to-toe both years with opportunities to win. So I think we gained some confidence from that. But at the same time, you want to go a little bit further. And, so we've made no secret that we want to compete for a national championship here. And that road is really difficult. But I think we've got a team that is at least capable of having that discussion.
So we're here with University of Nebraska-Kearney coach Rick Squiers, who's in his 26th season leading the local program. You last reached the national title match in 2019, still looking for that first NCAA Division II championship. But does this team have similarities at all to that 2019 team, Rick? Or is this, you put it together kind of a different way this year?
Yeah, I mean, with so much left on our schedule and, a gauntlet of opponents to face yet, I would hate to get that far down the road. But at the same time, there are some similarities. We've won close. We've played well under duress. We play really good defense. That 2019 team was amazing defensively. In the finals, it was the prototypical offense versus defense, and that day offense won. But so there's some of those similarities in how we play and how stingy we are in giving up a point and how many hustle plays we make. And there's a good chemistry here. The players seem to like each other. They're gaining confidence with every week. But, to think we're going to cruise through and win 10 more in a row would maybe be a little unrealistic knowing the schedule we have in front of us. But I feel good about this team, and I think they do too. And if and when somebody can beat us, they're going to have to play well to do it.
For sure. One of the members of your coaching staff, your daughter, Maddie, I mean, she was a graduate assistant last year, and I got to talk to her when she was part of the Supernovas training camp. I mean, what do you think that she adds to the staff too, and how similar of a coach is she to your style?
Well, she's a little different than I am. She's bringing a lot for us. I mean, the experiences she's had beyond her time at UNK have been really important for her and us, because she can share those with Peyton Neff and the other players. And, she was a pretty well-rounded player as well. So she can share information about being a good defensive player, being a good server. And so she does it in a different way than I do. I'm kind of the old school, hard driving, I think just based on my generation, that's kind of how it's been. And I have a hard time probably letting my guard down around the team, but she is very personable and low key. And I think they appreciate that about her. I can get a little bit worked up about something every now and then she can go talk to him in a way that is much more relatable. And so I let her do that. I mean, there's times when maybe I get frustrated and I'll just grab Maddie and say, go tell him this or that. And, and she'll tell him, but not the way I told it to her. That's for sure. Yeah. And that's good for us because they respect her a lot because they know what she did as a player. She still steps in every now and then in practice. And I think they see that she's still got a little bit of game, still young enough to play. So that's a nice asset to have on our staff, no question.
Every bad cop needs a good cop, right?
She's the good cop for sure.
Rick, you guys got to be part of a couple of really special moments in volleyball in the state last season. You were part of Volleyball Day in Nebraska with the exhibition match against Wayne State. And then also UNK set their own record with the Division II attendance record out at the Sports and Health Center in Kearney. Over 4,000 fans showed up to one of your matches to set the record. Is that a big point of pride for how the school and how the community in Central Nebraska supports this program?
Absolutely. I can remember before I got here, I was at Hastings College, and we played at UNK as a road team twice. And that was a long time ago now. And it was a different deal. I mean, you walked in here and kind of looked around and thought, okay, what is this? And so it's always been like that. And then you mentioned last year, playing in the stadium game, which was, once in a lifetime deal. And so we were really fortunate to be a part of that. But the previous year, our home court attendance record had been broken by the University of Alaska Anchorage. So we really used the stadium match and all of the hype around record breaking and things like that to kind of springboard into our season opener and go grab that record back. And so the folks at Kearney responded, came out. We had the Health and Sports Center full. And so we have the record again, but supposedly they're making another run at it in the final game of the season this year. And they got a little bit bigger arena than we do. So I'm not sure what we're going to do if they pull that off, but no question it's a source of pride here. The whole community in the region gets behind volleyball. They love Loper volleyball. They're knowledgeable fans. And it's a special place. I always tell people we're kind of the Nebraska of Division II when it comes to attendance.
Yeah, and it's easy to keep track of those records. I mean, the stadium match had 92,003. Your match had 4,003. So
that's right.
I appreciate the symmetry for having to do that recall. So that's great. The other connection to Nebraska, I mean, you're 26 years. John Cook just celebrated his 25th year at Nebraska, and he got a bobblehead. Have you talked to your marketing department about getting your own kind of commemorative keepsake?
I saw his bobblehead TikTok, ESPN commercial, whatever it was, and it was hilarious. So if we could do something like that, I'd be all in. We'd have a little hard time. I think we'd have a harder time getting rid of, 5 stacks of bobbleheads of Rick Squiers than they would of John Cook. So I don't want to be stuck with them. That's for sure.
Well, be careful what you ask for. We got our hands on one, and my 3-year-old's already broken his John Cook bobblehead into 4 pieces. So I haven't sent him a picture of that yet, but those things, they come apart easy.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you just sell them on eBay for more than $100 still. They're a very precious commodity as well. So
ours is being used, though. I don't know how much it's drawn on the second.
Well, good. We've been talking with the Nebraska-Kearney coach, Rick Squiers. They are currently undefeated in the year, off to their fifth best start. They're 19-0. They're 25 home match winning streak, but there have to be road warriors this weekend as they go down to Arkansas and Oklahoma, play a couple other conference foes. But thanks for talking to us, Coach, and best of luck in your matches upcoming.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate having me on.
Thank you.
And thanks again to Ncaa coach Rick Squiers. Hopefully keep an eye on them the rest of the year, see what they get, the gauntlet that is the Central Region Division II tournament, and see how they do. But thanks for him for giving some time. We're going to move on to rotation 5 now. We're going to have, Jeff and I have a little discussion looking at the pace of play within college volleyball too. And this came out of an article I wrote on the Substack, volleyballstate.substack.com. Subscribe for free. But it just seems like things are moving very slow in volleyball, and it's compared to other sports too. I mean, like you compare it to football that has a break after every single action, or baseball is a very lethargic sport in general. That you think volleyball is very brisk, but it just seems, as more and more eyeballs have been coming out, I feel like volleyball's at this moment too, that it needs to figure out some of these pace of play issues where sweeps are taking 2 hours, where 5-setters are lasting 3 hours or longer. That how can they really carve out its space? And to me, this also fits into the greater conversation of making a TV schedule for volleyball. Like Nebraska was on NBC on the weekend too. They got a 2-hour block and then had a half-hour studio show fill out the rest of the final 30 minutes of programming too. So I think that it's part of the consistency of it too, but also how long are matches taking that are on the court too. So I mean, Jeff, what do you see as the biggest culprits to what is causing these issues?
Well, so part of it's fixable and part of it's not, right? Like the whole reason volleyball moved away from side-out scoring to rally scoring, 25 years ago, was kind of with this in mind. Like matches were taking a really long time because if you had teams that kept trading side outs under side out scoring, no one was scoring points. And so no one was getting close to 15, and these matches were just taking forever. Volleyball by its nature is a little challenging because, like you said, a team can sweep in 79 minutes or it can play a 5-setter, which even, with no timeouts taken and no challenges can take 2.5 hours. So some of it you can't legislate your way out of. A couple things I think you could do is, just like in college football, as these games get longer and longer, the things making games take longer is not volleyball. It's the non-volleyball parts of a volleyball watching experience. So the biggest thing is, since we've instituted challenges, and now we've essentially gone to unlimited challenges if you are correct and you retain your challenges, that's what's slowing things down. Yeah. So you need better replay systems. If you agree that the goal is like, we need to make this match take less time, you need your Bolt 6 or your Hawkeye or something, or you need to put a time limit on your replay. Like if you cannot overturn the call in 90 seconds or 60 seconds, then the call on the court stands, and you just keep it moving, and you count on the fact that the universe is going to balance out over the course of a season. You could also convince me that, like, does there need to be 4 timeouts taken in the last 10 points of a set? No. I saw this brought up on social media where, I think there are some international formats where you take a technical timeout regardless at 8 once one team reaches 8 and when one team reaches 15 and maybe each team gets 1 timeout to call then, but you could make it where you get 2 timeouts, but you make it like college basketball and one becomes a use it or lose it, where if you do not take one before one team reaches 15 points, then you lose it. And you don't, and maybe then you see somebody taking a timeout at 13 or 14 just to use it, but you don't want to disrupt your own momentum if you're rolling. And so, you could get rid of a timeout and, not hurt my feelings too much, but replays and timeouts and really replays are what's dragging this out.
Yeah, and it's the quality replays too, and you've seen this kind of be fixed at the international level too, and also the PVF had that Bolt 6 that really kind of was so nice, and it also eliminates a lot of the the need for some of the replays too, because some of these in-out calls, if you have a Bolt 6 or a Hawkeye, the automated line calls removes the need for even challenging that, because they're called on. They're called on the little iPad that the up official can see. So then you don't even need to challenge those in-out calls. So that also helps out, just not speed up the challenges themselves, but the need for them in the first place as well too. I think it's interesting too to think about. There's some matches that I'm covering too that, you get the media timeout. Okay, good. No one's called timeout, but then you realize if it's tight that, crap, we got 4 timeouts that possibly could be called in the last.
You're going to make it to 2020 before anyone calls a timeout, and then there's a timeout after every rally.
It's kind of like the old thing, the death thing in football, where it's touchdown, kickoff, or touchdown, timeout, kickoff, timeout. I was like, I could have been so much more productive those 8 minutes of my life than watching all these commercials. But hey, that's the thing that they need to worry about too. And I think it's a consistency too. In my mind, we're just used to watching rally scoring. Each set should take about a half hour. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if they go to extra points, they'll take a little bit longer too. But even competitive sets, with just the pace of the play on the court,
it's not 45-second rallies happening over and over again that are making matches take a long time. And I would say too, you were having more service errors than ever before. Yeah. And I don't have empirical data on that. That's just me watching a lot of volleyball and watching teams serve out all the time. Those are really quick rallies. That's not a 40-second rally. That's, oops, I served into the net, other team's ball. Now you have 10 seconds to serve. So like the power in the women's game is getting to the point where rallies aren't taking a long time. It's, John Cook loves to say it's becoming more like the men's sport. Rallies aren't taking that long. People are putting balls away. And so what is making the sport take longer? It's the non-volleyball parts of volleyball.
And that was one thing they did at the AVCA kickoff. That's the first serve thing, is they had a serve clock too to kind of cut down on the time between serves as well. I think, was it a 15-second?
I thought it was supposed to be one. I thought from the time the official whistles you ready to play, you got 10 seconds. And if you did, it's just like shooting a free throw in basketball. And if you didn't serve, well, then that was a service error.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was a tighter, but they made a big deal.
Never said it happened, but it's allegedly supposed to happen.
I think they had shot clocks available, like a visual representation of that, rather than just the up official, whatever, counting with their arm. But yeah, I think that would also that's going to save maybe a minute, or I don't know, a minute over the course of a match too. But just it helps with the consistency, kind of like the pitch clock in baseball. You saw that this past year too. It just action's always happening, and you're not having to go back or do a substitution or signal. The coaches make decisions, and it speeds up some of that dead time too. So it gets back to the fast-paced volleyball instead of the slow-paced non-volleyball stuff.
Well, we have here in the show notes, at the end of the day, is this really a big problem? Is this making a less enjoyable watching experience as you're trying to grow this game and you're giving it high profile platforms like NBC and ABC and so many matches on ESPN now? It's so great for the sport. So like, is this the moment you're trying to, change it in a way that makes it a little more palatable for TV audiences? I don't know. I think a match still most matches will get over, around 2 hours. I think it's a better watching experience when your replays aren't like, blurry iPhone shot video where you're trying to squint to see if somebody's ring finger moved on a micro touch. If you could get that up, not only if you can improve the replay quality there, not only does your watching experience improve, but like it's faster, or it's more accurate and it's faster. It's just all around kind of better for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's to me the number one thing is just, especially being in arena, it kills the energy to sit through a 3-minute, 4-minute. I forget which match it was, but someone counted up like there was 21 minutes worth of review. Does that sound right, or did you see that? It was something.
21 minutes of review in a match wouldn't surprise me.
Just something dumb like that. Like
what was the Nebraska match earlier this year where there was like an 8-minute review? Was that against Illinois or was that at Purdue?
Yeah, it just kills the energy in it and in the arena. And I can't imagine sitting at home, you can get up and go to the fridge or take a bathroom break or go walk your dog in the time it takes for a review. But it suffers both on television and as an in-person product as well too. So I don't know who we need to talk to, whether it's John Cook or, I mean, John Cook's been arguing for better replay system, but the SEC actually is using Hawkeye this year too, but the Big Ten is locked into is a DV Sport, and that's like you said, watching on your old iPhone or your old analog television at times, I feel like. So it's an issue. Hopefully they'll get it figured out.
70 million of school and media rights money, and you're stuck with the Betamax of replay systems.
Yep.
All right, so that is our old man gripe for this week. We will move on to rotation 6. Nebraska's got a pair of home matches coming back to the Devaney Center this week. They're going to play Illinois on Friday, who they beat in Champaign a couple weeks ago. And our first look this year at the Michigan Wolverines, who the Huskers will play on Saturday. So let's start with Illinois first. The Fighting Illini, who, even though Nebraska swept them in Champaign, I thought, had some good moments and hung with Nebraska for a while. They've been on a tear since losing that match. Illinois is undefeated, 5 straight wins since they've lost to Nebraska on October 3rd. It hasn't been against the all-stars of the Big Ten. They swept Indiana and Maryland this week. They have a 5-set win, I remember, over Michigan State last weekend. But hey, they've got some really good players, chief among them Raina Terry, who's still really, really good. Credit to her, by the way, too. When we see this revolving door of transfers in college volleyball, Raina Terry could have gone anywhere and been a starting outside hitter. She stuck it out at Illinois, and she's leading them again this year. She had 13 kills against Nebraska the first time these two teams met this year. She's 4th in the Big Ten in kills. And Illinois also defensively has been really good. In this 5-match winning streak, they have held their opponents to 186 hitting or lower. So, this is not going to be a cakewalk for Nebraska on Friday night against Illinois at the Devaney Center.
Yep, and I believe John Bayless cited you for saying Raina Terry's so old she has tenure at Illinois, so good for her. Good for her. The other opponent Nebraska has coming up, Michigan, the first time they will see the Wolverines. Wolverines, I think, maybe the surprise team of the Big Ten so far. I mean, they were not good last year, but Erin Virtue getting her.
It was 7-22 last year.
Yeah, not good. And they had 5 wins in the Big Ten all last year, and they're already at 5 wins this year in the Big Ten. They're 15-3 overall. Like we said, they do play Sunday night after we are recording this against Wisconsin. That's going to be a tough match for them. If they do win that'll turn some heads, get a little more attention on this. It is in Ann Arbor, so big night for the Badgers, or not the Badgers, and the Wolverines, we should say. Leading the charge for Michigan is Allison Jacobs. She is 2nd in the Big Ten in kills. She's a UCLA transfer. She missed last year with a medical red shirt. She kind of sat out, but is back healthy. We got to talk to her at Big Ten Media Day. She's just a fun person to talk to, really has great perspective. She actually tried out she was part of the U.S. collegiate national team, that group of players who plays against the national team, and she played libero for that team too. So really good enough passer as an outside hitter, but also very good. She's been in double figures every match this year except for one. So,
and she's not real big either. She's I think 5'9" or 5'10". Can get up, hit really smart shots. She's Michigan's leading attacker and one of the best attackers in the Big Ten this year. The only other Wolverine who's really putting balls away, and I'm going to butcher this name, so I apologize, but their sophomore opposite hitter, Valentina Valle.
Valle, yeah.
She's from Argentina. She averages around 3 kills a set. Also, a really good server for the Wolverines. And of local interest, running Michigan's offense is Omaha Scott product Morgan Burke. She is the sophomore setter. She is having a really good season. She's top 10 in the Big Ten in assists. You're like, wait a minute, 10th in the Big Ten? Well, there's 18 teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So she is right kind of in the middle of the pack in assists for Michigan, and has them off to a 15-3 start going into Sunday night's match against Wisconsin. What we do know about Michigan, not a great blocking team. They are dead last in the Big Ten in blocks a set, averaging just under 2 at 1.8. So what do they do defensively? It's not like teams are really lighting them up. They dig a lot of balls. So Nebraska's going to have to find a way to put balls down against a Michigan team that is pretty scrappy defensively. They got some really impressive wins on the season. They have a win at UCLA. They beat Washington and in Ann Arbor. And the same weekend that they beat UCLA in 5, they lost a tight 5-setter in LA against USC. So this is a scrappy team. Their head coach, Erin Virtue, we've mentioned on the show before, is an assistant coach on the national team. She's got really good coaching chops, and they've turned it around in year 2 of her tenure.
For sure, yeah. So Nebraska will be home this weekend, and hopefully Nebraska fans get a chance to enjoy that too, because this is the back half of home matches. After they play these 2 matches against Illinois and Michigan, they only have 3 home matches in the month of November, which is not much. They host Indiana.
They play Minnesota, Indiana, and Wisconsin.
Yeah. So they the Big Ten schedule makers again. Not very kind to Nebraska. So enjoy those home matches while you can. So that'll wrap up our show for the week as well too. So if you have not, hopefully if you're listening to this, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching this, subscribe on YouTube. Just make sure you get the alerts when our content drops, so you can be the most have the most knowledge of all your friends, and really just kind of be at the forefront of the volleyball community too. So, and also give us a 5-star review or write some comments about what you think of our program too. So
only if they're nice though. If they're mean, just don't say.
Just email us if they're mean. If you have constructive criticism, email us those.
Absolutely. New shows usually drop Monday morning. I know they're up early enough for people who have early Monday morning flights. I saw that comment come through on Twitter a couple weeks ago, thanking us for keeping them company on the drive to the airport. Our pleasure. Travel safe. You can find us on Twitter at volleyballpod. You can email the show at volleyballstate@gmail.com. You can find me online and on social media at @ByJeffSheldon on Twitter. Lincoln, how can the folks interact with you?
Best way to interact with me is on Twitter at Lincoln_VB. You can also support us by buying our merch. Go to hurrdatsports.com/shop. Buy some bald set spike, justice for liberos. Support the volleyball community too. So thanks to Kahm Broham for producing today's show, and thanks to Hurrdat Sports. Follow Hurrdat Sports on social and YouTube. And thanks for living in the volleyball state.